And
This meeting is being recorded.
all right, well, welcome everyone. This is episode 3 of The Magic of Photoshop, and we've got a special guest tonight. This episode, if you want to call it that, is on dodging and burning. And so Corey's going to show you the way that he dodges and burns, and how it can really take an image to the next level. Corey has a specific way. I'll do the way he does it every now and then. We both learned from the same mentor. I think, Corey, that's probably who taught you the way that you do it. Is that fair?
Well, I learned it before then, but
okay,
he helped me develop it.
Okay, so Corey, I think a couple of cool things. I don't know that you do it with dodging and burning, but one of the things that I'll do sometimes on dodging and burning is I'll add texture through dodging and burning as well, using different brushes and things like that. And we can talk a little bit about that. So I know Corey's going to show you a way. I might show you one little way that I do it as well. So we'll have a little bit of fun. But so Corey's been a good friend now for a couple of years. He came and stayed with us after Texas school when he was up there, and Lori and I were teaching, and he got to experience Costco and Market Street. And we teased Corey about he had never seen anything like Costco. Y'all need to understand. Corey, tell us where you're from and how often. I think if I recall, Corey, was it you drove to Texas school, but it wasn't long after that you got on a plane for the first time. Am I mistaken?
The burger. The usual.
I can't hear you.
Let me try to mute all. Let's see. How do I mute everyone? I don't see how I can see I can mute me. Okay, well, let's have everybody mute themselves just to be safe, except Corey. So Corey, do an introduction, and I'm not sure everybody wants to hear your fondness for ketchup, but who knows?
I got sugar-free. It's Heinz tomato ketchup brand, no sugar added. It's fantastic.
So what y'all don't understand there is, I'll throw in a little quick story is we came home from Texas school, and I don't remember if it was that night. I think it was the next night. And I told Corey, I said, Corey, just relax. We're going to have us a really good dinner. And I said, do you want to go to the store? And he said, yeah, I'll go with you. And so we ended up going to Costco and getting some massive steaks. They were 3 inches thick, I think. And Corey had never experienced anything like Costco. So all I could hear him saying was, man, this place is like Disneyland. And it was just amazing. So we went back and I made these incredible steaks. They were $50 for 2 steaks. And I look over and we put it on the plate, and Corey's going, you got any ketchup? Went, oh no, Corey, you can't put ketchup on a steak like that. So we give Corey a little grief about his ketchup. There's a group of us that are all good friends, and we kind of tease each other on Facebook Messenger a lot. So anyway, that's one of my Corey stories. So Corey, jump in there. Tell us a little bit about you. I want you to brag. I'm going to demand that you brag on yourself a little bit. You've got your master artist, you got your master photography degree. You're about to get your craftsman. And honestly, everyone, Corey's one of my favorite photographers and just an incredible artist, just incredible, the stuff he does. So tell us a little bit about your work and how you got started.
Well, I suck when it comes to talking about myself.
That's all right.
So I'm from Alabama, if you didn't know. I don't know if you could tell or not. And I specialize in high school seniors. I don't shoot a lot of family, and I don't shoot a lot of children, even though I try, even though I want to. Where I'm from, if you're not free, you're not in business. So I don't get what I need for my business, but I am I'm in the process of moving to Texas right now. I'll be in Amarillo next week for a couple of days. But yeah.
Well, Corey, so Corey, how did you do? there's a lot of people on here that aren't familiar with image competition. I think I know we've got quite a few people here that are not PPA members. So I'll brag on Corey, a little bit. Corey does something really different. He creates these characters, and I'm not even sure I completely understand it. But Corey, if it's easy, and I should have asked you to do this first, can you pull up some of your past competition images, like the one right behind your head? And it's probably safe to show anything you've done this year, because there's nobody in here that's if there anybody in here that's an IPC judge that's judging Gia's, speak up right now. And I would ask nobody screenshot anything, but Corey, you feel comfortable showing. What's that?
I think somebody's in a drive-through. All I heard is, can I help you?
Corey, show a couple of people some of your images, some of your sports images, and a few of your competition images, just so that they can put into context the type of work that you do.
Okay, you got the screen share?
Oh, yep. Let me see if I can share the screen. I can't forget how to do this. Okay, so I'm just going to. All right, I don't. Yeah, I know. Okay, Corey, see if it'll let you share. If it messes up or whatever, so no one else share, if you would, please. Thanks, Melanie. His work is amazing, isn't it? I wish I could if I could shoot sports like Corey, I'd be a millionaire.
Where is? So this is my favorite piece. I had it in my head in June of last year. I had the title of it. I had this exact scene. Everything in it was in my head. And that's when I started saying, all right, I'm looking for 9 men of varying sizes. I don't care what color you are. I don't care how long your hair is. As long as you want to have fun and look just absolutely hilarious in one of my art pieces. So this is 9 dwarves and an elf walking to a bar.
So what's it called, Corey?
9 dwarves and an elf walking to a bar.
9 dwarfs and an elf.
Yes. And the reason it's titled that way is because, number one, it automatically gives the comedy to the scene.
Okay.
But it also explains why this guy, wrong color. It's still wrong color, Corey. There we go. This guy is smaller than this guy. It's because he's the elf and these are the dwarves. So
okay.
It kind of explains that. But I designed this image so that you come in right here, you go here, 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 here.
So your composition and the way that you wanted to push the viewer, that's why you have them pose the way you did.
Yes. And that was the most complicated thing, because he came in June. This one came in, I want to say October. These 3 were in January. This was December.
Wow.
This was January. This was, I want to say December.
So Corey, when you had the idea for this image, the picture that you had in your head when you decided you wanted to do this, how does that compare to what we see right here?
Almost exactly.
Yeah, see, I struggle with that sometimes. I don't know about everyone else here, but my priest image, I saw that one in my head the second that I shot it. That was dead on with what I wanted. I've had a few like that. But usually my images come on, kind of take a life of their own.
Initially, my walls were going to be wood and more reminiscent of like a Western saloon.
Right.
But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I'm too lazy to go in there and do wood. So I used a rock wall.
Okay. And then how many of these elements did you shoot yourself, and how many were they that you used stock or composited in? I know you composited the whole thing, but
basically just the guys were
so
the only things that I shot.
okay. And you do a lot of compositing work. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay.
That's almost exclusive now.
Awesome. Okay, so why don't you show one or two sports images, some typical stuff you do for seniors. So instead of something like this, what I would call a personal project, is that fair?
Yeah.
Yeah, so why don't you show a couple of images of some of your dramatic sports images that you do that that you actually sell to clients. And then when you do that, why don't you talk a little bit about how dodging and burning, what role that plays in you creating the look that you like?
Yeah. So the very first thing that I do when I shoot on green screen is I retouch. So he's already been retouched. I've actually dragged him over in a document already for y'all. But I retouch first before I do anything, and then bring them over into the document that I need to after I've extracted them. And that's when I start my dodging and burning process. So I'll go in, and I've already done it to her, so I'm not going to do it now. Otherwise, it's just going to look really bad. But I basically go in and exaggerate all the highlights with my dodge and all the shadows with my burn. And so it slims the face up on people like me. And it also provides a bit of extra drama and depth to the image. And the people who look at it, and photographers, when we look at it, we're like, oh yeah, there's a lot of depth there. But clients don't typically care about that. So when they look at my work, they're like, oh yeah, they notice it. And that's kind of the signature trait that I want, is that when clients look at my images, they know it was mine and they come to expect it.
Right.
It's not something they have to say, we want this. Can you do it? They say, we want this.
Right.
And so, they come to expect it. Even in stuff like this, I'll dodge and burn the heck out of it. This one, do you want me to just jump into it?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
Do we have any? Let's just see. So let's just do this real quick. So before we get going here, and Corey shows you his techniques on dodging and burning, do we have any questions? Because when he's doing this, what I'd like to do is, if you have any questions, put them in the chat, and then at the end we can maybe open it up to questions. And if I see a question that I feel that we need to answer right then, we'll answer. I'll interrupt Corey, but I'd rather try to let him kind of go down his path and talk about what he's doing. So I don't see anything in here right now, Corey. So talk. Let me. And I'm. What I want to do is, do you have a vision for this image? Let's say. So why don't you share? And I know you're not going to take this image from finish to complete. And maybe before we're done, maybe you can open up one of your images that you've got all the layers on. So you could show the cutout, and you could show us then after all the work's done to it, where you've added all the atmosphere and all of that stuff. But what I'm curious is, do you have a vision? What is your vision for this final piece right here? Or do you even have one yet? You're just using this to show us dodging and burning?
Neither. I never really have a vision when I'm shooting. And when I get started on an image, I'm just gonna see where it takes me. This one I kind of knew. Actually, this one is one that I'm entering in Colorado competition, since I'm speaking there. But what the original one that I made looked like this. And the lights that are behind her are not mine, which is why I had to redo it.
Okay. Yeah, I like this one better.
So I kind of knew that she was gonna be on a floor, and there was gonna be a ground floor. That's why you see a little light here, and then the shadows there. but I didn't know whether I wanted smoke or whether I just wanted to present her the way she was. And I ended up with smoke. I'm 9 times out of 10, if I don't know where I'm going with it, I just throw in the smoke because I like smoke. And it's been said that I might overdo it a little bit, but you know what? It works.
Yep.
And that's what matters in the end is what my clients want.
Okay. So let me ask this one question from Angie. And I'm thinking she means touch up. She says, why do you edit before putting in the background?
That is an excellent question and one that I'm actually going to answer when I get started.
Perfect. Okay. Well, let's go, Corey. I'm going to shut up if possible. I'm going to mute myself because I talk too much. So
Amen.
here we go.
All right. So the first thing that I do is I drag him over into the document. You can kind of see, I can move him around. I got him centered perfectly here. So I'm just going to leave him there. So the reason I do all the retouching first is because I use a frequency separation action that I made, and it only works on a flattened document. So I do it before let me actually open up this. I do it before I extract them so that I don't have to do it later at the very end. And I can concentrate more on what he needs to look like. So all of this has been retouched already, just like it is. I don't take out stray hairs on green screen. I actually love stray hairs there because it brings about the realism to it. If there's no realism in it, especially doing what I do, then you're just gonna be like, ugh. So that's why you can see his stray hairs up here and all that good stuff. So I bring them over into a document that has gray background. So why is it gray? I can go different shades of gray depending on how dark or bright I want the image. So if I know that the final image is going to be really dark, I'll go with a dark gray. If I know it's going to be really bright, I'll go with a really light gray. So it basically depends on what that final image is going to be as to whether or not I want it to be bright and happy or dark and serious. And this one's going to be dark and serious. Did y'all like that voice change? I don't know what it sounds like when I do it. So just let me know if it was too corny or creepy. So first thing I do is I duplicate my layer and rasterize it. And I'm going to do that again slower. So I'll go over here and I'll duplicate or hit Command J. I use Windows, not Apple. So if you're like, what is Control? It's a Windows thing because Windows is better. So you just right click and rasterize. So that takes it from the smart object that it is after I drug it over here and just turns it into a normal layer, and I clip it. Might be saying, why do I clip it? Oh my gosh, y'all. Is it okay? Real quick. Are there 2 little green marks right here?
Yes, Corey.
Yes.
I see 2 little light colored dots there. Yes.
Okay. I really hope that is just because of Zoom, because it doesn't move when I zoom in.
Yeah, that's weird. It must be something on the camera or something. I wonder if it's on your camera.
No, because I'm screen sharing.
Oh, that's true.
I'll figure it out later.
Okay.
So in my opinion, he's a little bit too bright, especially right here in the face. So the first thing I'm going to do is go up here to filter, camera raw filter, and adjust a little bit of it. I'm just going to drag my whites down a little bit, and maybe up that texture some, and then roll with it from there. So all that did was just kind of tone down his skin. Now you may be wondering why we clip the layer. I'm going to show you real quick, and hopefully Zoom isn't too low quality for this to really show up.
It's showing up good for me, Corey.
Okay. So this is why we clip it. If I turn this layer off and on, you can see what happens when you stack 2 layers like this on top of each other that are identical. It pushes the boundary of that cutout even further. So it's like duplicating a transparent, 50% transparent layer, turns it into like 60 to 70%. And the more you do it, the more you're going to see all that those surrounding pixels kind of show up.
So
So I
Corey,
always-
would you say that's where a lot of photographers get some haloing in their images when they're doing things like that?
No, but I would say that's where they get a lot of cutout looks.
Okay.
Especially when we're talking about hair, especially girls' hair with the long and flowy. If you're cutting that out, then where you use the refined edge brush is going to bring those layers visible really, really quick and really, really bad. So there's several different methods to use for dodging and burning. I prefer the history brush, but before we get to the history brush, I'm going to show you guys how to do it the other two ways that I know. So the first way is to come up here to curves. We're going to take a curve layer. We're going to go ahead and clip it. We're going to select our little pointy finger here. And we're going to come over here to the face and find the brightest part of the face, which is going to be right here at the nose. And we're going to click that and drag it down. We're going to come over here and click on our mask again and hit invert. We're going to name that burn. Then we're going to make another curves layer, clip that, your little pointy finger, and come over here to the darkest part of the face. Now your first inclination is going to be come over here to this cheek, but actually you can come over here to the nose, right about here where that crease is, and you're going to click it and drag it up. And we're going to invert that, and we're going to call it dodge. Then we're going to click on the mask, grab a brush. It's going to be white and probably going to be about 20% opacity. And
Hey, Corey.
Hey.
And I'm going to interrupt something for you real quick here. You just reached up, and I know what you did, but I know there's a lot of people who don't know what you just did. At the top of your screen, there's a little brush with a target, and you clicked on that when you were picking your brush. Do you mind sharing why you clicked on that and changed that?
I sure will. So normally when I've got this on, I'm doing this on a blank layer where I'm like painting something in, like literally painting something in. So the reason why I turned it off is because if it's on, this is what my dodge layer is going to look like. And if I go to 100%, it'll really show up. And I don't want that. That looked like a gastrointestinal. Okay, so this is what happens when it's off. So it basically takes, if you come in here to brush settings and turn it on, you can see what it does when it's on. You can see what it does when it's off.
Right. So that's your shape dynamics. It kind of makes the brush come to a point when you lift up and stuff, correct?
Correct. And it's pressure on the pen.
Right. And I think it's important because we can't see your desk. You're using are you using your Cintiq One or whatever it is? You're using your tablet and a pen, not a mouse.
Right.
Okay.
A mouse will never do that. A mouse will never do that pressure point.
So that's it. And I don't mean to interrupt, Corey, but I do, because I think this is really, really important because it changed my editing style and it changed my world when I went to a Wacom. I use a Cintiq like Richard does. That's who taught me and convinced me to get one. Trying to do stuff with a mouse and get this. What would your work look like if you were trying to just do it with a mouse?
I can show you actually, because I had to do this when I was in, let me make sure. When I was in Yellowstone, I did not have, this was last year, I did not have my tablet. So I ended up having to do this with a mouse and it turned out okay, but it was not as comfortable or as easy.
Right.
Especially when there was like 5 people looking over my shoulder trying to figure out what I was doing.
It's just so much more efficient and
Chris, I think I know what these little green marks are. That looks like a brush stroke. So I think you've got something on.
That I do?
I think so, because that looks like a brush stroke. Right there.
Okay.
So I did this with a mouse. And it does not look as good.
Right. It doesn't have the detail.
Right. So I'm gonna jump back in on this one. So I've got my brush setting the way I need it. and I've got my opacity at 20% and my flow at 27%. Now, I don't know what flow is. I'm just gonna assume that's the pace at which it works. You know, that I don't really know that part. I do know this though. In my brush settings, if I come down here to spacing, I want my spacing to be 5% or less. Never 1%, because at 1%, there's a lot of lag. But at 5%, I'm okay with that. So this is my dodge layer. I'm gonna come up here and just start dodging and really exaggerating these spatial features.
And it looks like we're seeing some lag. Are you not moving your brush? The circle is staying in one place.
I'm moving it.
Okay, it's weird the way it's looking on the screen. Now it's moving, but when you were dodging, it was staying in one place, but we could see it getting lighter in another. So
okay,
that's all right,
because it's Zoom or something. Because
it's probably internet lag.
All right, so I'm gonna make my brush a little bit bigger, and I just go in and I exaggerate all the highlights and come up here above the lips. Don't forget those. Brighten this nose up a little bit. And with the eyes, I'll always come in and just do a quick little whoop, whoop. Have to make that noise when I do it. And so we kind of got an okay dodge here on his face. And that is one method. Of course, you can go into burn. And it's okay to overdo it if you're like, ugh, because you can always come up here and just drag it back enough to where you did something. You can tell you did something, but it's not obvious, you know. So that's one method of dodging and burning. The other method,
that's a little more similar to the way I do it. So,
yeah.
And I'll just add, those that are looking, is that I like I kind of prefer that you have the dodge and the burn on separate layers so you can adjust each one. That's one of the ways I like.
So this is the second way to dodge and burn. So I've got both my layers selected. I'm going to duplicate them and merge, and then I'm going to duplicate that. This is going to be dodge, and this one's going to be burn. So I'm going to take those two layers and I'm going to clip them. And we're going to set this burn layer to multiply and this dodge layer to screen. And then we're going to put a mask on those. Double click them, invert, double click, invert. And so this is the other way to dodge and burn. It's faster than curves, I'll say that. And you get the same result. And I will say that this method was not taught to me by, I didn't learn this method on my own, let me say that. It was taught to me by this little known photographer out of Colorado Springs. I think her name is Shannon
Toes.
Is she in here right now?
She's not. Shannon's one of our close friends. So
Shannon Squares. We get pretty much the same effect as using the curves method. And of course, you can adjust these with your layer opacity. You can see it's a big difference. It might not look like it if you just sit back and look, but if you turn them off and on, it's a big difference. And we adjusted the opacity quite a bit. So now I'm going to show you the way I do it all the time.
So Corey, before you jump out of there real quick, Cheryl, if you don't mind, Cheryl was asking when you were doing that technique there, tell us why you're clipping that.
Okay. So I'm going to unclip it real quick. Turn that one off because I can just do this. So I'm going to come up here. It's easier to look at the hair because it just is. So if I've got it on and off, oh, shoot. Let me invert. Okay. So I've got it on. Well, that's not going to work. Hang on. All right. The reason it's clipped is because you can see that certain pixels here are somewhat transparent. Some of them might be 10%, some of them might be 50%, some of them might be 90%. And the more you stack layers on top of that, the more those transparent layers are going to expand, and it's going to expand what you've cut out.
So Corey, and I think maybe another way too is, you tell me if you agree with this. When you clip something to it, that means that whatever you do on that layer, it's only applying it to the pixels that are on the layer beneath it. Is that fair to say?
Correct. And Shannon says it's speaking to that layer.
That's a great way to say it.
That's a great way to say that.
Yes. So when you do something on that layer above, and if you mess with that hair, you might do a Corey, clip one real quick and show where you color way outside the lines, but how it only shows up inside the lines on the layer below it. Does that make sense?
All right, so I'm going to take a black brush because black's going to show up much better.
And you might show it clipped and unclipped.
Yeah, I'm going to do this, and I'm just going to say, ooh. Okay. So now it's clipped. Now it's unclipped.
Great example. So instead of having to paint each individual hair or do something that you wanted to do, when you clip it, it only affects it where there are pixels on the layer beneath it.
Correct.
It speaks to it.
So that is the blend mode way of dodging and burning. This is the way that I prefer to do it, just because, you know, it's my favorite. So I've got my two layers and I duplicated them, merged them, clip them. I'm gonna come over here and grab this little brush with an arrow on it. That's the history brush. I'm gonna come over here to my history state, and if you don't see this where I've got mine, you just come up here to Windows, you'll come down here to history, and it'll pull it up. You can drag it over here, keep it if you want to do that. So what is history? So history is pretty much, I think mine is the last 40 states. So the last 40 things that I've done, it'll show it. And you can come down here and you can go layer visibility. And that takes me all the way back to here, or I can come back down here, and that takes me to where we currently are in the present. So I'm going to hit this little check mark. Now, this only works if you hit that check mark. If you don't hit that check mark, you're going to get something really crazy, or else it's not going to work at all, and you're going to get that. See a little no sign. So make sure you check that. And now I'm going to come down here to the face, and I always start with my dodge. So I'm going to come up here and change the mode of the brush itself to screen. And I'm going to be about 21%. My flow is already where I want it. And I'm just going to start dodging. And for me, there's a difference between using the history brush and the other methods. I can't really put it into words what that difference is. But the way I tell anybody who's asking for my help whenever I do one-on-one stuff, I always tell them, whatever's comfortable for you, do that. Don't think that just because I do it this way, you got to too. And we're just going to exaggerate all these little features. And normally I would take my time doing this, but I'm also talking at the same time, and I know I'm going to end up doing something while I'm talking. So I'm just kind of speeding through a little bit of it. I always come in here just above the lips to give it a little, even on guys. And he's going to end up looking like a little porcelain doll in just a second, which you don't want on these athletes, especially boys, we don't want to look like porcelain dolls.
So you switch the brush to multiply there so it was
Yes,
darker.
yes. Switching it to multiply turns it into burn mode. Good catch, Chris. And again, this is what happens when I go to talking.
No, that's all right, Corey. You do you.
Come on here. And like I said, we are exaggerating the hell out of his face. Can I say hell?
Yes, you can. Just not in front of your mama.
Oh. And then I'm gonna come up here to his eyes, and I'm just gonna come up here and ooh, ooh. Okay, so and of course I'll do it to the rest of the body too, but we're just gonna concentrate on the face on this one. So here's what we did. You might be thinking, Corey, that don't even look right. Well, it's not supposed to right now. We're just gonna adjust that opacity down to about 40%. And there. Now his face is not flat. It's flat here. It's good to roll here. It's just more depth. And if I were to do the rest of the body, which we don't have time to do that. But if I were to do the rest of the body, it would just add to that depth feeling here, especially right here in the shadows of the jersey. I do not know why my athletes love white jerseys. I hate white. I hate it. I hate it so much that I actually took one of my seniors' white jerseys and turned it dark gray. They loved it.
Well, you don't do a whole lot of bright images though, Corey, do you? Would you say that your style is a little more low key?
Definitely. I don't like happy things.
I'm not sure we go there, Corey, but
I like
you like
dark and
ketchup.
depressing.
Ketchup's kind of happy.
It makes me happy. I like dark, depressing, and
How about dark and dramatic instead of depressing?
I mean, yeah. Wait till the stories come out. Once I post the stories of my competition images, you'll be like, oh, that is depressing. Everybody dies.
Oh gosh, let's make sure everybody's on mute.
So that is how I start with my athletes. Oh, there's a wolf. How do I do an image like this? Well, this is a completely unretouched image, and I pulled it up just because it has not been retouched. So we'll come in here and you can kind of see where her face has been overexposed, and there's even a little bit of camera shake in here. I'm not going to worry about the camera shake for y'all. I'm just going to duplicate my layer, come up here to camera raw filter and tone down the face just a little bit. And okay. And that's more workable right there. So now I learned about keyboard shortcuts about 3 years ago, and it was a game changer. I'm pretty sure everybody else already knows what they are, but me at the level that I was at the time and not knowing about keyboard shortcuts, it was like God opened the gates of heaven and I looked through them, and it was fantastic. So Control Alt Shift E. And that takes all the layers in the document, merges them onto a new layer wherever you were in the document. So I'm going to delete that. If I go right here to background and I click on background and I hit Control Alt Shift E, it's going to take all the layers that are in the document and merge them together, but it's going to merge them wherever I was clicked at. So if there's layers on top of what you just did, they're all merged together on that layer, but you're going to have to bring it up to the top. So now I'm going to do my dodging and burning on her. And this is a great example of the history brush. You can see the history of the image itself. So if I go over here, we're there, here. You can click on each individual one and see where you were. So I'm going to hit my little check mark. I'm going to move over here to screen. Raise my brush size a little bit. And we're just going to go to town on this dodge and burn. You might be wondering, Corey, you just brought all that back. Why are you brightening it up again? Because I like to be in control. It's a very narcissistic thing to say, but I prefer being in control of my images. I'm gonna come in here and give her a nice little butterfly there.
And Corey, what do you mean by you gave her a nice little butterfly there?
Well, this is butterfly lighting. So the light is directly above and in front.
Okay.
So what it's doing is it's creating a butterfly using the shadows and highlights under the nose. So you see the wings here. And,
Perfect.
you know. So we're coming down here to the lower lip and exaggerate that highlight quite a bit. And come down here to the chin. Come right here. Now notice how I jumped into this. This is what happens when I go to talking and I'm working. I did not do my retouching. Oh well, I'll get to that in a minute. Just gonna do that. So let's take care of some of the eyes. Don't overdo the eyes. I'm overdoing them now because we're going to bring that opacity of the layer back here in a minute. But don't overdo the eyes, otherwise it's going to look really creepy. So do you think we're done with our dodge? Nope. We still got to do the hair. So doing this to the hair really adds the dimension, and one of the ladies helped me out. When you fluff your hair up, what's that called?
I have no clue, Corey.
Is it
I don't
zhuzhing?
either. I haven't brushed my hair in 12 years.
Oh, is it zhuzhing or poofing?
Maybe it's proofing. I don't know. I wish I did.
Fluffing?
I'm like fluffing.
So we're just going over here to the highlights of the hair and kind of exaggerating those a little bit. And I'll go ahead and do her body. So we'll come down here to her arm. And again, I'm just doing this lightly because I want all the attention to be on the face. She is a high school senior, so I don't want to bring attention to her chest or any other inappropriate area. So I feel like this right here is already bright enough, but I might come here to the folds and just kind of do that a little bit, give it a little zazz. I don't even know what zazz is. It's a word that I just used. You know those words that you never say, but then all of a sudden you say it one time and then you hear it all the time?
Kind of like Costco and ketchup.
Hey, I love ketchup. I hate tomatoes.
There, we're in agreement.
All right, so now I'm going to grab my burn. So I'm going to come up here and change my blend mode to multiply. I'm going to come in here to the face and just kind of get those dimples right here in the chin, redefine that chin a little bit. Notice how I didn't change her. I didn't morph her face. I know there is a photographer, and I'm not going to say who it is. He's definitely not in this Zoom meeting. I have seen them actually film themselves morphing his seniors' faces and putting it on the Instagram stories for all of them to see. And that's not something that I do. I do not morph faces. Now I'll morph the stuff that you see hanging behind me. I will morph them because they're playing a character. But when it comes to portraits, I don't redefine what somebody looks like. That is your God-given look.
Now, Corey, if they ask you to do that, because I get clients that ask to do that.
Well, like, okay, so if I pose one of my girls like this, it's going to make this arm really, really big. Now I will go in and fix that because that's a pose issue. It's not a body issue.
Okay.
Then I'll have some girls who are slightly bigger than other girls, and I'll fix a few things there. But as far as changing who they are, I don't do that. And I definitely don't morph the face because that is unique to every human being on the planet. All right, so I feel like I've burned enough. So I'm going to pull back, and you'll kind of see she does look a little bit scary, especially right in here. So we'll just adjust the opacity of that, probably around 50 to 60%. You can see what all we've done, and it's really added some depth.
So Corey, let me throw a hypothetical at you here with you doing it with this technique.
Mhm.
Let's just say that you're looking at this and you feel like, above her eyes, maybe I darkened that a little bit too much. How would you go back and redo that? Or, we all do stuff. We go, oh, even if I adjusted the opacity, I really don't like what it looks like. So how would you fix that or adjust that with this method? And that layer is on 58%, so you know it.
Yeah. So there's two ways you can do it. The first way is to say, okay, I'm just going to bring this cheek right here where it's really bright right here. I just want to bring that back just a little bit. I'll come over here, put a mask on it, grab my regular black brush, and at about 20%, I'll just do a couple of clicks and just bring it back a little bit. But if I do it, oh shoot, hang on. If I do it this way, it takes what I did off of the layer. So I'll come up here, and instead of going to multiply or screen, I'll go to normal. And just so you guys can see a huge difference, I'm going to bring that back up to 100%. And normal just basically takes it back out.
And you're doing that multiple times because you had your history brush at 21% versus 100%. Right.
But if I go back to 100%, you see it just brings the image back to where it was at the beginning.
Right. So that's how using that method, you can tweak stuff. Now I'll ask this question because someone here may not think about it. But with this method though, once you save and close this image, your history is gone, right?
Right.
So you can't open the image later and go backwards in your history or use the normal to lighten or darken something. You're going to have to kind of start over with your
Yes.
dodge and burn.
This is an advanced level of dodging and burning. And by that I mean you've got to know what the end game of your dodging and burning is before you start using this method, because you can mess it up really quick and not even realize that you've messed up until the very end when you see the final image and you're like, oh, what did I do? I love this method. It's the one that I started with, and so I kind of know what the limits are for it.
Right. So Corey, Helga was asking, could you do in the history brush, instead of one layer, could you do one layer where you're dodging and then one layer where you're burning?
Oh yeah. Well, maybe. Hold on. No, I don't think so, because the layer has to be visible. So if I do this, I'm going to duplicate it. We're going to call this burn and this dodge or dig. That's going to say dig. I'm sorry, y'all. So if I come in here on dodge and I do my history brush, and I come up here to screen, I'm going to sit here and dodge.
But you could turn your burn layer off for now, right? And just do dodging.
Yes.
And then get that where you like it, and then do a new layer and then just burn on that, and then just adjust each layer independently from one another.
Correct. Yeah.
You would just need to turn the layer you're not working on off before you did it.
Well, you wouldn't be able to put a layer on top.
Oh, I see what you're saying though. If you, yeah, you really can't because if you dodge on that one, you're going to cover up the burn underneath you.
Right.
Yes. So really this method, you need to do it on the same layer.
Yeah. And you can do it multiple times. So if I go back over here to Coleman, I can duplicate it again and say, you know what, I want to do a little more dodging and burning. You can. You just do a new layer.
Right. And it's weird. Sometimes I use this method, Corey, and then sometimes I use the two different layers where I can work on them independently of one another. I don't know if it's just, if I feel like I'm working on an image where I'm not gonna, you know, sweat over it and I just know exactly where I'm going, I'll tend to do it this way because I think it's quicker and more efficient.
So we've dodged and burned two people. I'm going to save that one. So I know there's some of you out there that primarily work on animals. Yes, you can dodge and burn on animals. And this is my buddy. His name is crap. Hold on. No,
That's a
not
weird
his
name.
He's one of the wolves at the Grizzly and Wolf Center in West Yellowstone. And I forget his name, but he is one of the Hoodoo Pack. And he was posing for me this day. So I'm going to start with my dodge layer. So we're doing a screen. Got the layer right here. Opacity needs to be 20%. And we're going to come in here. With animals, it takes a little more time. You do have to take your time on animals. Because unlike us, their skin is not visible. What they have is fur. So
Or do you ever use different brushes to dodge and burn, or do you primarily stick with a soft round brush?
Soft round.
Okay. Because with Richard, I'll use a lot of different brushes and I'll dodge and burn with texture on some stuff that he and I've worked on together. Hair brushes or what have you.
Yeah. Now, when I'm painting, I'll do different brushes a lot. This wolf's nose is black, so we do have to bring it up just a little bit. Now, you can go in here to his catch lights and see that the light was coming from straight above and it was overcast. So we get to define our own light. I love animals in overcast light because then I get to make the light the way I want it. So the problem with fur is this. I was going somewhere with that statement, and then I forgot where I was going with it. Yeah. Okay. So we're trying to add depth to something that is very thick, and there's a lot of it. So you pretty much have to like play and play and play until you get something that looks real. And what we're trying to do is add some depth to his fur. I'm trying to make this quick, y'all, because I know we've already been at it for like.
No, you're good, Corey. I think the great thing is if anybody has to check out, we've got this recorded and they can watch it later.
Okay.
You do you.
So as you can see, I kind of went with the highlight of the fur right here, where it kind of curves. So this is the highlights, and this right here is going to be the shadow. And I'm only because of time, I am only going to do around this area of him. So I'm doing this in steps. And no, this is not going to be the only dodge that I do. We'll come up here to his chin. And no, there is no light right here. What we're doing is just defining where the edge of that chin is. So now he looks like he's smiling. He's a happy wolf. All right, so I'm gonna come in here to the eyes, and we're gonna turn our little dynamic brush back on. So now we're gonna have that fine point on the brush. I'm gonna come in here right here. And get that highlight on the black part of the eye. And we could probably bump that opacity up to 40% for that because it is black. All right, and now I'm going to turn my dynamics back off. I'm going to come in here to the eye and dodge just a little bit right there. Give those eyes some glow. And I'm going to change my blend mode to multiply. We're going to do our burn. So burning is when you really have to pay attention to your light direction to get the shadows just right. So you're going to come in here to the ear. And yes, you do, the physics is involved in that. You know, you don't want to create shadows where shadows should not exist. And just add a little bit right there, maybe right here and here. And come in here up under the eyes a little bit. Come in here, and I'm taking my brush in the direction that the hair is flowing. And we're going to come up under the snout and really just kind of dab a little bit in areas because the light's coming straight down this way. So he's going to have that shadow under the chin. And maybe right here. And my contacts are drying out, so if you see me blinking, I'm not doing Morse code, I promise. All right, so this is what we've done to him. It's a huge difference and a much more desirable difference.
That's fantastic, Corey.
And as far as the catch lights go, you can use a new blank layer. You come over here and grab a white brush. Your opacity at 20% with brush dynamics on. You can just come in here and follow along with that catch light that's already there. And paint enough light in to match the highlights and shadows we just created. Catch lights matter, people.
That's a great point, Corey. I think a lot of people miss how a catch light can really make an eye pop.
Mm-hmm. And so that is dodging and burning on a wolf. I don't have a whole lot of pets on here other than mine, and pulling mine in is just a whole nother matter. Here she comes now. Pulling mine in, she's solid black. Come here. She's getting some water. She's solid black. So dodging and burning on her is really, really, I don't recommend starting pets on a pet that's solid black or solid white for that matter.
Yep.
Come here.
So Corey, I had a question earlier I think from Gina. She was curious, what lens, do you have a favorite lens that you use when you're shooting seniors and that kind of stuff? And I would add to that, is there a specific aperture that you tend to gravitate towards? Yes.
So when I'm shooting my sports work, non-action, just poses, I'll use 70-200, and I'll usually be at 70 to 105 on that. For the more action stuff where they're moving around and jumping in front of the camera and things like that, I'll go to my 24-70, and I'll usually be around 35 to 50 millimeters. And the reason for that is you get distortion when you go wider than 70. And I don't want distortion in there. In action, it's okay because I'm shooting. Let me pull one up. I'll pull Hannah. So this one was shot at, what was this one? It's on here.
You could go to file info.
So this one was shot at 85 millimeters. If I had shot it at 35, she would be much wider, her body. And it's how the lens is formed as well, has a lot to do with that. For her action, this was shot probably around 50 millimeters because she was probably, if the image was like this right here, she was probably that size on the image, because she could jump pretty high and I didn't want half of her hand to be cut off somewhere. As far as a favorite lens goes, I don't really have one. I just use whatever I know is going to be right for that specific situation. Aperture is another matter entirely. So here, she's sitting in the creek. I shot this with an 85 millimeter at 1.8 aperture. And you can kind of see where it falls off on her a little bit. Here in the studio, I shot her. This was f8 because I wanted all of her skin to be in focus so that I could extract it.
That's a great point right there. Because I'm surprised how many. I think it's really common for us to shoot wide open, you know, at 2.8 or 1.2, whatever your lens is. And so many photographers there's so many in here that are new shooting in a studio. I was surprised in some of the workshops that we taught this summer to see how many shoot wide open in studio. I was really surprised.
Yeah. You see, if I were to extract this image off of that background, I would actually have to go in and select this portion right here manually because the focus has fell off on that arm, right, specifically right there. It's a little bit out right here, but it's a lot right there because I shot it at 1.8. And some of the hair is in focus here, which wouldn't have been an issue. Oh,
That's a beautiful image, Corey.
let's get closer. This is a pretty girl, especially right here. If I go to extract this one, this is going to be a nightmare to cut out.
Yeah. Well, awesome. All right, Corey. Is there anything else you could have? Do we have any questions? I'll open it up to a few questions for a few minutes. If anybody's got questions for Corey, I know Corey, you Corey and a few others, we're really close friends. We argue about print competition. We've got a good little group that we're all friends with. And I know, Corey, you don't do a lot of teaching, do you? I know you're starting to do some more and you're going to start doing some judging. Do you have plans to do more teaching or anything like that?
I need to develop my teaching skills.
Yeah, I think they're great. I think you're fantastic.
I'm actually right now instructing the drumline at my old high school. That's actually where I was about 3 hours ago. And that's really helping me out a little bit because I'm having to think how to translate what the kids need to do in a kid way so that kids can understand it. And I'm kind of trying to let that be the direction I need to take my teaching to in photography. Is not that y'all are kids, but I'm having to think like, how am I teaching the kids? Well, that's how I need to teach the photographers, because a lot of times I can get off track. And it's like you had to do earlier is be like, hey, did you just move it over to multiply? It's like, oh yeah, I forgot to do that.
Right.
And then I get on tangents and I forget what I was talking about. So I'm having to like one-on-one I'm good with, but when it's a large group, I have to remind myself to stay on task.
Sure.
But I'll be speaking at Colorado in 3 weeks, and that's a 5-hour program on the stories. And then Sync in February. I'll be in one of the Texas guilds in January. First weekend of March, I'll be in Montana. And
Wow.
then I think it's the last weekend of March, I'll be in Washington.
So are you gonna venture to Yellowstone in March when you're in Montana?
Well, of course I am. No, you already knew that.
Right.
If I
figured you
can, because the only way in or out is going to be Gardner, but that road is still closed, and you have to have certain credentials to be able to go on the old Gardner Road to get into the park. So if I can, I will.
would. Right. So why don't you unshare your, hang on, there we go.
Sure.
There we go. That's better. I stopped sharing your screen, so now we can see a little bit better. So Corey, I think one of the things I've got Trina here ask a question. And I don't want you to go into it detail because we just don't have time, and that's a different subject. But she's curious about your extraction methods. I think a lot of us here probably were sitting here amazed at how well you extracted the hair. So I don't really want you to go into detail because, like I said, some of us are still at the studio, want to get home. But if you don't mind sharing just a minute or two. But what I would like to do, Corey, if it's okay for you, is to invite you back real soon for another episode, and maybe you can talk about your extractions and how you do your extractions a little bit.
Absolutely. I'll say this, and I'm going to plug another photographer for this one. For green screen, I use Ben Shirk's extraction action.
Yep.
That is hands down the best one for green screen. If I'm shooting on gray, I have to do it manually. So I'll manually select. I can go to select subject or go in there, manually select it. But there's several different things that I have to do in the process of extraction in order to get that good clean extraction. And I'll be happy to show that next time I'm on. But as far
What
as
I'll do, because I'm friends with Ben as well. I took Ben's workshop several years ago when I was actually contemplating getting out of the industry, and it was just before we started doing Santa, and we got the Santa studio. And I told my wife, said, "Hey, if I'm going to recommit myself, I'd been burned out for 10 years shooting editorial, that I needed to go all in." And at the time, Ben was, doing like he does every year, winning so many awards. And I said, I want to go to one of the absolute best. And that was one of the first big workshops that I took was Ben's. And man, he's phenomenal. You're right. So I'm going to post in the chat right now. I just went to Ben's page, his extraction tool that people can buy. So those that want a good extraction tool, Corey, you might just touch on it, just a touch, but we don't mind throwing Ben a little love tonight, and because he does some amazing things with templates and stuff.
Yeah, it's hands down the best. I don't have that that software that extracts it for you, and it's like a plug-in or something like that. I don't do that. No, it doesn't do what I want it to do.
Awesome. Let's see. Looks like I don't have anybody. Last chance for any questions. I did share so anyone who wants that link to Ben's extraction tool, it's pretty cheap. I don't even remember what it was. I've got it. I just don't do a ton of green screen anymore. I don't see what I think it's pretty cheap. Let me see what it is when I add it to
He updated it a couple of years ago to include extraction of shadows.
Oh, yeah, I see that.
The actual shadow from the green screen onto the image you're making.
Yeah, so it's $149 or $199. And that's a real fair price for as good a job as it does. So hopefully Ben will send me a commission. Send Corey a commission.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah, Gina, it's $149 and the one that does shadows is $199. So any other questions for Corey before we call it a night? here in beautiful Texas. And Corey, are you Eastern time or are you Central time?
Central.
Okay. I don't think we've got any more questions. This is a good turnout, Corey. We've had 24 that showed up, and I know we've had over 90 that have that signed up. So I'll say thank you to Aileen and Baby Dreams for giving us the platform to help educate other photographers. And I know there's a bunch here that are not members of PPA. Corey, you might just touch on how being a member of PPA has elevated your game. And I don't mean just because of something you got for them, but the networking and the opportunities and the print competition, the education, all that stuff has helped you grow as a photographer.
Oh, absolutely. And the friendships that I've made just being a part of Texas's guild or affiliate is, just pretty much life-changing. Like literally, I'm about to move everything that I have to Texas. And I mean, that in itself should tell you what kind of people are in the Professional Photographers of America, or just barring that, the TPPA group. Yeah. Everybody that I've talked to has been like, "Oh, we can't wait to have you out here," and they truly mean it. So I can feel the love for that.
Awesome. All right. Well, Corey, we'll let you get to your black cat or dog or whatever it is, and
no cats.
So we will. I've had a couple of people. So we will share the link probably tomorrow. If not, the next day. We have to get it to download and do all that stuff. And I'll hold on, Corey. We'll share the link to this. What we have to do is Lori puts the little intro in it. Then I have to upload it to YouTube. Then we have to add it to our website. So we will post in Baby Dreams. Watch it over the next couple of days for the replay, where you can go and watch this anytime you want. Corey, you had something else?
Thank you.
Yes. So while I've got you all on here, a lot of people, every time I speak or anything like that, they'll go to my Instagram and start following me. Please don't do that. As much as I love and appreciate that, it actually takes my reach to seniors, families, and children down. And so they see less of my work and you get to see more of it. And while that's great for fame's sake, I kind of got to market to other photographers. And this is great for everybody to practice. Don't let other photographers follow you, and don't follow other photographers. And that doesn't just help your social media. That helps you be more creative, because now you're not having to look at what everybody else is doing. You can concentrate on what you're doing. Just be wary of that. I do remove all photographers off of my follow list. I know that sounds like a dick move, but I noticed that after I removed all photographers, my reach to who I'm actually on Instagram for goes up.
That's a great point. Yeah. So, and I think I never thought of that, Corey. But we do have to market to, you're marketing to specifically who you want to market to. And for me, I like teaching, and we like doing workshops, and we've got some other big things planned that we're going to announce. So see, mine's a little bit opposite. I like the photographers, mostly Facebook, because I'm terrible on Instagram. But
I don't mind them on Facebook.
Yeah.
Facebook's
So
fine.
Facebook's good. Yeah. So that's a great point. So they can friend you on Facebook if they want to ask questions or whatever, or follow you there. That's probably better than Instagram, I guess. So no, that's a great point. Okay. I don't see any other questions, so I think we're going to call it a night. We will put this out in a day or so, and I would encourage everyone to get a little more involved in the education group on Baby Dreams, because the goal of that is education, and we want to keep bringing more things like this. So comment, share images, ask questions, and maybe Corey will even chime in every now and then. All right, everybody have a good night. Thanks.
Thank y'all.
Thanks, Corey.